The night was quiet, too quiet. Sarah had always loved browsing Reddit late at night, reading chilling horror stories that sent shivers down her spine. But tonight felt different. As she scrolled through a thread titled 42 True Creepy Horror Stories from Reddit, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching her. The glow from her laptop screen barely lit the dark corners of her small apartment, and every creak of the wooden floor sent her heart racing. One story caught her attention. It was about a man who heard whispers in his home, whispers that repeated his name in a voice that wasn't his own. Sarah felt her skin crawl. She looked around her empty room, reassuring herself that she was alone. But as she continued reading, the unease grew stronger. Another story described a shadowy figure standing at the foot of someone's bed, disappearing the moment they turned on the light. Sarah instinctively glanced toward her bedroom door, suddenly regretting staying up so late. She was about to close her laptop when she heard it. A faint knock. 3 slow, deliberate taps against her window. Her breath caught in her throat. She lived on the 3rd floor. There was no way anyone could be outside. Her pulse pounded in her ears as she reached for her phone, her fingers trembling. But before she could even unlock the screen, another knock echoed through the room. Had she read too many ghost stories, or was something trying to reach her? She turned her head slowly toward the window, her heart pounding like a drum. And then she saw it, a dark silhouette standing perfectly still just outside the glass. Sarah froze. Her breath came in shallow gasps as she stared at the figure outside her window. The room felt colder now, like something unseen had slipped in, along with the fear creeping up her spine. She wanted to tell herself it was just a trick of the light, a shadow cast by a passing tree branch. But she knew better. The figure was too still, too deliberate. It wasn't moving, yet she could feel its presence pressing against the glass, watching her. Her fingers hovered over her phone. Call someone. Anyone. But who would believe her? It was almost 3 a.m., and she had no explanation for what she was seeing. She forced herself to blink, hoping the figure would vanish when she opened her eyes again. It didn't. Instead, it shifted. Not a step, not a twitch, just a slow, sinking movement, as if it were melting into the darkness. Sarah's mind raced. Maybe it was a prank. Someone from the building messing with her. But that didn't make sense. She lived too high up and there was no balcony. Even if someone had climbed up, how were they just standing there without a ledge to balance on? Her stomach twisted with unease. She forced herself to move, inching toward the window with shaky steps. If she could just see its face, maybe she'd understand. But as she got closer, her reflection merged with the shadow, and for a second it looked like the figure was wearing her face. Her own hollow eyes stared back at her, dark and empty. A sudden noise shattered the silence, a thud, loud and sharp, coming from her front door. Sarah spun around, her heart hammering against her ribs. The knock at the window had stopped. She glanced back, but the figure was gone, swallowed by the night. She wanted to believe she imagined it, but the heavy weight in her chest told her otherwise. Another knock, this time more urgent. She hesitated, then crept toward the door, her feet barely making a sound on the wooden floor. With every step, the air seemed to thicken. She pressed her eye to the peephole, expecting to see an empty hallway. But instead, she saw something worse. A figure stood just outside, tall, unmoving. The same shape, the same eerie stillness. But now it wasn't at her window. It was at her door, and it was waiting. Continue from where the second part left off and write 100 words for my story that explore the main conflict in depth. Develop subplots and dive into different angles or perspectives, but keep the tension building. Don't resolve any of the major conflicts yet, and keep the suspenseful tone while ensuring the story remains engaging. Use relevant keywords naturally. Also, do not make any headings. Only write story in paragraphs. Also keep the wording simple and natural. Also, make the script human-centric and don't give feel of AI-generated. Also, don't create violated content which can affect YouTube policy. Sarah's fingers hovered over the lock, her pulse pounding in her ears. She wasn't sure if she should open the door or step away. The figure outside didn't move, didn't knock again. It just stood there, waiting. The peephole distorted its shape, but she could see enough. Its face was obscured, like a shadow stretching where features should be. Her throat was dry. "Who's there?" she whispered, barely able to get the words out. No answer. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Then a sound, soft, almost imperceptible. Breathing. Slow, steady breaths coming from the other side of the door. Sarah's body tensed. She took a step back, then another. The floor creaked beneath her, and suddenly the breathing stopped. A sharp, scratching noise began at the base of the door, like nails dragging across the wood. Sarah's heart clenched. Her phone was still in her hand, but when she looked down, the screen was black. Dead. She could have sworn it was charged just minutes ago. The scratching stopped. Then, bang! The door rattled as if something had thrown itself against it. Sarah let out a strangled gasp, stumbling backward. Another bang. The handle twisted violently, shaking against the lock. She wanted to scream, to run, but her body wouldn't move. She stared at the door, waiting for it to burst open. Then, just as suddenly as it started, everything went still. No sound, no movement. Sarah barely had time to process the silence when she heard it, her bedroom window sliding open. Sarah's blood ran cold. Her bedroom window was locked. She was sure of it. But now the unmistakable sound of it sliding open filled the silence. She turned her head slowly, her breath shallow, her body frozen between the front door and the darkened hallway leading to her room. A gust of cold air drifted through the apartment, carrying with it the scent of something damp, something old. The air felt heavier, pressing down on her like an unseen force. She wanted to run, but where? The door was no longer an escape. Whatever was outside had been trying to get in, and now something had found another way. She took a slow step toward the hallway, her heart hammering. Every shadow seemed deeper, stretching unnaturally along the walls. The dim glow from the streetlights outside barely reached her bedroom, but she could make out the curtains swaying, the window now open just enough for someone, or something, to have entered. Her mind raced. Had she really seen someone at the window earlier, or had it been inside all along? Watching her, waiting. A soft shuffle came from her room, barely a sound at all, but enough to send a chill up her spine. She forced herself forward, gripping her dead phone like it could somehow protect her. She wanted to call for help, to scream, but fear held her voice hostage. As she reached the doorway, the air turned icy. The room looked the same: bed, dresser, scattered books. But then, in the corner where the shadows were thickest, something shifted. A shape barely distinguishable, blending into the darkness. Sarah's breath hitched. She could feel it staring at her, even if she couldn't see its eyes. Then a whisper, so faint she almost thought she imagined it. "You let me in." A sharp knock suddenly echoed from the front door again, loud and forceful. But Sarah couldn't move, because now, standing just inches away, the darkness in the corner stretched, lengthened, until it was right in front of her. Sarah couldn't breathe. The figure in front of her, made of shifting shadows, seemed to pull the light from the room. It was close, too close. The whisper still lingered in the air, curling around her like smoke. Her body screamed at her to run, but her feet stayed rooted to the floor. The front door rattled again, another sharp knock. But Sarah couldn't look away from the thing standing before her. It didn't move like a person. It rippled, like a reflection in disturbed water, stretching and twisting with every flicker of light. Then it leaned in. A cold breath brushed against her ear. "You let me in." A jolt of terror shot through her, breaking whatever hold had kept her frozen. She stumbled back, knocking over a lamp. The crash shattered the silence, and for a brief second, the room lit up. In that flash of light, she saw it, her own face staring back at her from the darkness. Sarah choked on a scream. The thing was wearing her features, but its eyes were hollow, deep pools of nothingness. It smiled, a slow, unnatural stretch of her own lips. The knocking at the door turned into pounding. Someone was out there, someone real. With every ounce of strength she had left, she lunged for the bedroom door, slamming it shut just as the figure rushed toward her. The moment the door clicked, the pounding at the front stopped. Silence fell like a heavy weight. Sarah's chest heaved. She pressed her ear against the door, listening. Nothing. The apartment felt still, too still. Cautiously, she turned the knob and peeked out. The room was empty. The window? Closed, as if nothing had ever been there. Shaking, she stepped out, her hands trembling as she reached for the front door. Maybe, just maybe, someone had really been knocking. Maybe she could still get help. She pulled the door open. A mirror stood in the hallway where the door should have been, and in the reflection her own face smiled back at her. But she wasn't smiling. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. She took a step back, but the reflection didn't. It just stood there, grinning, her own face twisted into something unnatural. Her heart pounded as she turned her head slightly, trying to see past the mirror. But there was no hallway, no door, just endless darkness beyond the glass. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. She squeezed her eyes shut, gripping the doorframe, willing herself to wake up from whatever nightmare this was. But when she opened them, the mirror remained, and so did the figure inside it. Then it spoke. "You're on the wrong side now." Sarah's stomach dropped. She felt a strange pull, like the ground beneath her wasn't steady anymore. She turned away from the mirror, refusing to look at it, forcing herself to focus on something, anything, normal. But her apartment felt different now. The air was colder. The walls seemed stretched, warped in ways they shouldn't be. Slowly, she reached for her phone again. The screen was on now, glowing softly. But when she saw the reflection on it, she nearly dropped it. The camera showed her back, like she was still facing the mirror. Her hands shook as she touched her face, her arms, her chest. She was here. She was real. But the sinking feeling in her stomach told her something was very, very wrong. Then a sound, a soft knock, 3 slow, deliberate taps. But it wasn't coming from the door anymore. It was coming from inside the mirror. Sarah turned back, and for the first time the reflection moved with her. But something was different now. The grin was gone. Her other self looked terrified, and then, just before the image faded, she heard her own voice whisper, "Don't let it in." The screen of her phone flickered and went black again. The room was silent. The knocking had stopped, and Sarah, standing there in the eerie stillness, realized she wasn't sure if she had ever truly been alone.